All right, our job today, if you look at your tracking sheet, the tracking sheet will be on my webpage. So if you happen to miss, I'll wait until we're quiet. I'll wait until we're quiet. If we look at this, we're actually going down to the fourth lesson. This is going to go with lesson 7.3 from your textbook. And we'll be doing some homework problems from 7.3 for today. But we're just looking at finding relationships between angles. Okay? And today we have a lot of vocabulary that we have to go over. Okay? We already talked about one term, and that's congruent. And congruent, just to make it simple, it just means the same. Okay? We can talk about congruent angles. They are angles that are the same. If we're talking about the lengths of sides and they're congruent, that means the lengths of the sides are the same. Okay? So there's two pairs of congruent angles on this picture right up here. This angle right here, and we call this angle MRP, or we can call it angle PRM, or we can just call it angle R. But we'd get confused on this because there's actually two angle R's. But both angle R's are the same, so they are considered congruent. So angle MRP is congruent to angle NRQ. Do you notice how this vertex right here always is in the middle? Okay? So that has to be the middle letter when we're describing the angles. Okay? Then there's another set of congruent angles, and that's angle MRN is congruent to angle PRQ. So we should have congruent down. I know I've heard some of you using that terminology before in class. Oh. Now, vertical angles and adjacent angles. If we went back to our drawing, which I thought I had copied on here, but apparently I didn't. Vertical angles are going to be angles that are basically on top of each other, or these two are also considered vertical. Vertical angles are always congruent. When we have two lines that cross, our vertical angles are going to be congruent or the same. So no matter what type of intersection that I have, if I draw a line here and a line here, I know that this angle right here is going to be the same as this angle right here. They are vertical angles. They are going to be congruent. They have to be. Okay? I know that these two angles right here are vertical angles, and they're going to be the exact same. So any time that we see two lines that cross or intersect, we know that we're going to have a pair of two different pairs of vertical angles, and those two different pairs have to be the same. And now I'm going to explain why. Ready? Oh, I love it. What is a straight line? What's the angle measure of a straight line? Does anybody know?
180.
180? Does everybody see that this line right here is a straight line?
Yeah.
Okay. Now look at what it measures all together. Right there. 180. So this angle and this angle together are going to add up to 180. There'll be a special term for that in a second. Okay? And look at what happens if I continue and I go all the way around. What's the whole, does anybody know? I mean, you snowboarders out there, skateboarders, okay? What happens if you go off, like, you're going down a hill and you do this really rad jump and you turn all the way around and you land it? What's it called? 360 degrees. Perfect. That's a full circle. Okay? And if you do, if you do the same thing, you jump up and you land the other way around, it's 180. Wow. If we know that, man, our snowboarders definitely have a advantage. If we know that. As far as adjacent angles are on the exact same line. And the adjacent angles are the two that go together to make up 180. Okay? Look at this. Here's a straight line right here. Everybody agree that's a straight line? Yeah. Wouldn't these two angles together add up to 180? Okay? And then look at here. Here's the straight line again. Here's the bottom side of that. These two angles here have to add up to be 180. And then we can go right here. Look at it. Right up here. These two angles have to add up to be 180. 90. So now, can you see why these two angles have to be the same? Because this plus this is 180. Okay? The red plus the black is 180. Then this black plus this red has to be 180. And this red plus this black has to be 180. Therefore, these two blacks, these vertical angles, must be the same. These two reds must be the same. Make sense to everybody? Yeah. Okay, so we covered vertical and we covered adjacent. Adjacent is just the next door neighbor. They share the same line, and then they have a line that intersects. Okay, and where that line that they share, where this line intersects, those two angle measures add up to make 180 degrees. Now, kids, I do want to just make sure everybody understands this. This is just when two lines cross. When we have more than one line, more than two lines cross, then all bets are off. Make sense to everybody? Now there's two more terms that we need to know. When we have two or more angles that add together to make 90 degrees, we call them complementary angles. We call them complements of each other because together they will add up to 90 degrees. And then there's another one that we need to know, and that's supplementary. Supplementary angles add up to 180 degrees. And we can see these two angles are considered adjacent angles. Okay? And these two adjacent angles, when we just have one straight line and one line intersecting, these two adjacent angles always have to add up to 180 degrees because of that right there. That straight line. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay? Now, here's the easiest way for us to remember. There's two ways. Complementary, C, comes before supplementary, S. Complementary is 90, and 90 comes before 180. Okay, so we can remember that. But my favorite way, if we can remember one, we'll remember the other, right? Yeah. Sure. So when you guys are walking down the hallway, and I hear you guys doing this from time to time, okay, you'll come by and you'll say, sup. And from now on, the answer for sup is 180. Because I know, hey, look at, and you already know supplement. Final warning. So supplementary angles add up to 180. You can ask any one of my students. Now everyone knows. Any one of my math students, every one of Mr. Davis's math students, almost every sixth grader, if you say sup to them, they will probably respond 180. And if they don't, one way for you to prove that you're a 4 in this is if you tell them what sup actually means. You'll be good to go. Okay? All right, so let's see how well we understand all of this. I'm going to give you a little bit of time. Can you name a pair of adjacent angles? Can you name a pair of vertical angles? Can you name a pair of complementary angles? Can you name a pair of supplementary angles from this picture right here? Okay, I'm going to give you a moment, and in some cases, we have multiple places that we can talk about. For example, the adjacent angles. There's a bunch of different pairs of adjacent angles. Okay, I'll start off with adjacent angles that are complementary. Angles 1 and 2 are right next to each other. Okay, they would be considered adjacent angles. Okay, we have adjacent angles between 3 and 4. They're adjacent. 4 and 5 are adjacent. Okay, 3 and 2 are adjacent. So there's really, you could have named any pair up here except for like 1 and 4 are not adjacent because they're not next door neighbors. They live across the street from each other. Okay? 4 and 5, they're adjacent. 3 and 1 would not be adjacent. Everybody see that? And 3 and 5 wouldn't be adjacent. In fact, there's a special term for 3 and 5. What is 3 and 5 up there? 3 and 5 are not complementary.
Vertical angles.
3 and 5 are vertical angles. Okay, so this one is angle 3 and angle 5. Everybody see that symbol that we use for angle? Angle 3 and angle 5 are vertical angles. And vertical angles are the same. Anybody know the measure of angle 3 and the measure of angle 5? Yeah, 90 degrees. Okay. Now, can we name a pair of complementary angles? I gave it to you earlier if you're listening. Complementary angles add up to what? 90 degrees. So what two angles put together would add up to 90 degrees? Yeah. Yeah. Angle 1 and angle 2. Right here, these two added together will make exactly 90 degrees. Okay. Then, can we name a pair of supplementary angles?
Yeah.
Sure.
3 and 5.
3 and 5. You know what? You said that earlier. Tell me, would 3 and 5 actually add up to make 180? They are technically supplementary. They're just not adjacent. But they are supplementary. I think I said no earlier. 3 and 5. This is 90. This is 90. What's 90 plus 90? 180. Okay. 3 and 4 would work. 4 and 5 would work. You could say 5 and 4 and 4 and 3. But then, yes, I agree. 3 and 5 would work. We could say, now it says pair, and pair means how many? 2. But angles 3, 2, and 1 all together are supplementary angles because all together they add up to 180 degrees. Make sense to everybody? So we have to remember that supplementary sup means, wow, we need to get a little bit better. Sup means,
180.
thank you.
Oh.
Oh.
No. Dang it.
Two angles are complementary. So the two angles add up to what?
90. 90.
They're complementary.
90.
Complementary means they add up to 90 degrees. One angle is 20 degrees smaller than the other angle. What's the measure of both angles? I'm going to give you a second to try and solve that. All right. What'd you get, Ava? Didn't get it. All right. Anybody have an answer? They think they have it. Go ahead.
Okay. Should I just say them? Or like how I got them?
Sure. Say them, and then you can explain how you got them.
Okay. So I got 65 and 25.
65 plus 25 is equivalent to 90. However, 65 subtract 20 is not 25. Does that make sense? So we're awful. I agree. Everybody agree these are complementary angles, but that doesn't quite fit the requirement of being 20 degrees smaller. Okay? Yes, sir?
I did 55 because I just did 50 and it added up to 80 because 50 plus 30 is 80. So then 55 plus 35 is 90.
Is
Because
is
you add up with the fives.
is there a difference of 20 degrees here? Okay. Now there's other ways to do it. We talked about 45 and 45 adding up to being 90. Then those two would be congruent. Okay. Well, one way to get 20 difference is to add 10 to 45 and then subtract 10 from the other 45. If we take 45 plus 10, we get 55. And we take 45 minus 10, we get 35. And we add them together and we get 90. Now there's another way. And you guys are going to love this way. I know some of you are going to say, Mr. Martin, I would never in my life do this. But if you can do it this way, I promise you, you are well on your way to being proficient, if not exceeding the standards for 6th grade. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. I know that I have an angle measure. What's an unknown number in math? What do we call an unknown number?
Variable.
All right, so give me your favorite variable.
B. D.
He said B. Now, if we do B and we add it to another number, it has to be equal to 90. B is the big one. Now, I'm going to use B again in this one, but if I'm going to use B, B and B would both be 45.
Yep.
So what do I have to show here? B,
Plus.
not plus. Minus what?
20.
Thank you. Everybody see that? If we take the angle measure for B and we add that to B minus 20, we'd get this problem. Now, what happens if we have B plus B? We're repeatedly adding B. What do we have?
20 plus 20.
No. B plus B.
45.
No, it's not a number like that. What's B plus B? How many B's do we have? B plus B is 2B. Subtract 20. Now, if we take 2B and subtract 20, that means we need to, how do we get rid of subtract 20? And that's going to be equal to 90. What's the opposite of subtracting 20? Okay, so let's get rid of that 20. And now we have 2B is equal to 110. How do we figure out what 1B is?
You minus half of it.
Say it again a little bit louder. To find 1B, wouldn't we divide it by 2? All right, so 2B divided by 2, 110 divided by 2, and so B is equal to 50. Isn't that what we got? 55? And then this one right here would be 55 minus 20. What's 55 minus 20? 35. Everybody see how I did that? I broke it down into, I know that one angle has to be something. It's B. And when we add that to the other one to get to 90, it is B subtract 20, because that's what the problem says. If we go back up, Thank you. Two angles are complementary. One angle is 20 degrees smaller. Here's one angle. Here's the other angle that's 20 degrees smaller than the first. Everybody agree? Now, kids, if we could do that, I'm telling you that's really going to help out. If we could write an algebraic equation from this problem. Now, can you do it through guess and test, which some of you did? Can you add 10 to the top and subtract 10 from the bottom? Sure, there's nothing wrong with that. But this is eventually where we need to be. And if you can be here by the MC, if you could do this kind of thing by MCAs, it's really going to help you. Okay? Certainly help you in 8th grade. All right, or 7th grade. Let's do 5, 6, and 7 on our own. Can you guys see that fine, or should I can make it a little bit bigger. Is that better? What's the measure of angle 2 have to be? Why? 60 degrees. We know that these two angles together have to add up to 180 degrees. Everybody see that half circle right there? Half of a circle. Full circle is 360. Half is 180. So we know that these two together have to equal 180 degrees. Now you can either say 180 subtract 120, and we would have that missing number. Is that right? To get it. How about for number 6? Number 6, what did we get for the measure of angle? What'd you get? No, look at your sheet. What's your sheet say? What do complementary angles add up to be? Complementary angles add up to 90 degrees. I'll tell you, it's not 35. How would we do it? I'm waiting. Thank you. 90 subtract 35. Uh-oh. $55 degrees. Anita says that the plus sign forms two pairs of vertical angles. Charles says it forms two pairs of congruent angles. Who is correct? Yes. I would agree if we look at a plus sign that there are two pairs of vertical angles. We have one here and one here, that's one pair, and one here and one here, that's another pair, right? Charles says that it forms two pairs of congruent angles. They're both correct. Now, you could be a little more, you could say, here's a pair of congruent. Here's a pair of congruent angles. Here's a pair of congruent angles. Here's a pair. So there's at least two pair of congruent angles. Okay? So technically they're both right on that. All right? Here is your homework for today. Page 335. Numbers 15 through 29, 13 through 29, odd. 13 through 29, odd. And tomorrow, everybody noticed that I did put those quizzes in the grade book. Tomorrow we'll get those quizzes back. We ran out of time today.
I feel bad because provided person was 2. Why would some